So we're jumping in on the back end here. Board gaming hobbies, board gaming tactica, board gaming setup. So there's this idea, a board game is a specific scenario, a specific experience packaged in something that you can play very, very quickly, very, very focused. Now, that doesn't mean it's not complex. That doesn't mean that it's not epic spanning story-wise, but a great example, if you've been following my channel for any amount of time, you know that I love dungeon crawlers. So if we take something, or fantasy RPG type games, if we take something like Runebound 3rd edition, love 2nd edition too, but we're looking at 3rd, it's essentially an RPG light adventure game where you quest, you travel around the land, you level up, you gain magic items, and when the timer's up, you have a boss fight against a dragon, against Necromancer, against the Spider Queen. And it's essentially the massive scope of a Dungeons & Dragons adventure put into a compact, fast play scenario. So understanding that, the idea is board games, and again, some play it 60 minutes, 90 longer, Twilight Imperium, hours. It's a snapshot, it's a focus of an experience. This leads to setup time and breakdown time, and leading into this vlog. So you get your board game, and let's say kind of worst case scenario, Fantasy Flight Games. You open it up, it's got a really nice insert with artwork. It gets you pumped. But then you realize everything goes in the box, but it's just flipping around and blowing around and getting all mixed up. Organization is key. Organization is key for your collection, because if we can decrease the setup time, the breakdown time, that's important. That's more plays. The game gets on the table more, and it allows you to enjoy that experience for the maximum amount of time, especially if you're at a gaming club where it's like, look, we're starting at 5 o'clock and we can go till 9 o'clock, but then we got to get out of here because the hall closes at 9:15. I want to spend the most time gaming. I want to get the most time with board games. Now, I will say there are certain games that I really, really love. But the setup time is a major commitment. Gloomhaven is a major setup without any organizers. We're talking pre-organizers. We're leading into that. So there are times where I want to jump into Gloomy as a solo board gamer where I'm willing to set it up. I'm like, I haven't done some Gloomy in a while. I'm willing to set it up on my gaming table and play it on and off for a week or two. But there have been a couple of times where it's like, if it would just set up itself, I'd kind of be all in. Here's another great example of this, and then we'll jump into some suggestions for organization and systems. I love Talisman. I love Talisman with all the expansions. I have all the expansions. It regularly comes out and plays. But there are times where I'm feeling... Now, I play Talisman competitively. I also play it sometimes where I want to throw down a couple of characters and have them run around the table and see what the story unfolds. See who can make it to the Crown of Command. Almost like watching the narrative unfold. But there are times where I jump into the digital on my tablet simply because, do I want to set up Talisman? And, well, Fritz, you could just play base game. No, can never just play base. Must be all expansions. Must be everything. Must be completionist. So can we have some sort of system? So the first system, of course, in doing this, because the idea is I want to be able to set, and this is where the cycle comes in. You want to be able to set it up as quick as possible and have everything organized. You also want to have it break down as quickly as possible, because I want it to be a clean breakdown. I just don't want to kind of pile everything back in bags and go, so I can clean up Runebound in 2 minutes. I can clean it up in 1 minute. It's called dumping everything in the box. But now I got to deal with that next time I play. So I want to kind of have this neutral state every single time. The first, of course, is just good old school Ziploc plastic baggies. Maybe you label them, maybe you don't. With Runebound, that's what I have. The board goes on the bottom. Character pogs in one, magic item pogs in another, story cards in another, dice, counters, gold, everything's broken up. I've got 15 plastic baggies. That works. but it's pushing it. It's pushing it. If Runebound was any bigger, that would be a challenge. It also barely fits in the box. It barely fits in the box. Now, ideally, what I like to do with expansions is I like to keep the expansion boxes if possible, but I like to fit everything that I possibly can in the core. So this way, when I go and play it with friends or I bring it somewhere, I only have to bring one core box. I don't have a workaround for, say, like Dark Souls, which I enjoy. It's core, expansions, explorers, and all these packs. They don't fit into the core because the miniatures are kind of oversized. I just can't do it all. I have to bring all 8 or 9 to play because I might not know which expansions we want to pull in and utilize in that gaming session. So from that perspective, sometimes I can't fit it into the core, but if I can keep it in the box, that's what I'd like to do. Now, the next step up is something custom. So we're going to get a little bit more beyond just plastic baggies. And a lot of my games are just kind of plastic baggies. The next step up is sort of a custom insert. Maybe you take a little bit of hobby foam and you cut it out and you hot glue it or you glue it together, or you work on foam board with an X-Acto knife and really kind of map out a nice expansion system. When we do this, and we also see this with the like Broken Token and various organizers, the idea is not only does it allow you to organize everything, but it takes it to one step further because now you can take that organization, that shelf system, pop it out, put it on the gaming table. So rather than having a pile of pogs and a pile of life tokens and piles of cards, it's like a dashboard. It's like a control board all laid out that you can utilize. That's the next step up. The challenge here, of course, is build it yourself, and you have to scope it out ahead of time, or invest in something that is pre-made. The pre-made, if we look at Gloomhaven, as of now, they're like $80, $90. So it's essentially like buy Gloomhaven and then buy a second Gloomhaven to have as a backup, or if things get worn, or just to have and stash in your gaming closet. So like 50 years from now, you got Gloomy, or buy the organizer. The organizers are not $5, $10, and I'm not saying they should be. They're priced for what they're priced, but you see with these organizers, it's like I can get another copy of the game, or I can get another title for my collection. If you build it yourself, that requires some scoping out, that requires some prototyping. When I built some inserts, I bought a couple of books a while back, very, very specialized books, and they were literally shipped in like this foam case with layers and layers of hard foam. And I used that foam for a long time, for months, cutting with my X-Acto knife and gluing to make a ton of inserts. So sometimes you come across a really awesome treasure that you can utilize like that. What I did ahead of time was I prototyped it out of cardboard. Taped the cardboard together, marked it off with markers. You have to do a little bit of building to make it fit. And even then, it's very, very careful. It's not always perfect. The final piece of organization, and I see this as evolving, and it's very, very interesting. And then I'm going to pass it over to you guys in the comments. Board gaming system organization. Yes, no. What are you using, Fritz? I only use little baggies. Fritz, I just do the pile it in, dice tower, pour it out, pour it in type method. But what I am seeing more of, starting to evolve, and it's very, very interesting, with 3D printers. 3D printing systems where literally you print your own organizer. And to be able to do that, to fire and forget, come back and it's printed, that really intrigues me, where you're starting to see some custom printed inserts. But as a board game enthusiast, as a board gaming hobbyist, these are important things to look at because you're going to need to organize certain games, ideally to get them out, to get them playable, and to get them ready on the table.